Hi, I'm Dr. Emma-Leigh Senyard. I'm a clinical psychologist based in Brisbane, Australia. Thank you for being here. I mainly talk about the nervous system, mind-body connection, generational trauma, neurodivergence, and transpersonal or spiritual and energy psychology, tapping, and so on. One thing that I'm really passionate about is mental health prevention. I even did a podcast earlier this year, mental health biohacking is what I call it, on how we can prevent depression, anxiety, mental health burnout, and all of these things, or burnout in general. And one thing I really wanted to touch on is that I have spoken about this on many podcasts, how there is a disconnect between psychology and as a psychologist and the medical professions. There's not a lot of overlap. And some people are surprised when I ask them as a psychologist, as I did earlier today with a client I'm doing an autism assessment for. I asked, have you had any recent blood tests? And what did they say? They told me they had low iron, and there was a history of panic attacks. And some people are quite surprised when I say, oh, did you know that having low iron, having panic attacks is actually, they're connected, they're correlated, because it's the way that the neurotransmitters and stuff work in the brain. And you need energy, you need motivation to be able to produce dopamine. So obviously when you have low iron, you just are exhausted. It's hard to do anything. It's hard to get the motivation to do anything, and so on. And when you've got it's just harder to get serotonin and dopamine working and developing in your body when you're just not excited and getting out there and doing things and checking things off, and whether that's achievement-based stuff or whether that's enjoyment or pleasure-based things, which are both great positive neurotransmitters being released with dopamine, serotonin, and so on. So it's harder. I have low iron myself. I've always had low iron. It's something that I work on and that I'm aware of. I'm still breastfeeding my second daughter at the moment, so my iron tanks even more. So I'm aware of that, and I'm taking numerous supplements to assist with that. So I get it too. But I notice within myself, if my iron drops to quite a low amount, my anxiety will increase. And so people are just unaware of this. So I'm bringing this to your attention now. If you haven't had blood tests done recently, go and get blood tests, because the mind-body connection is much stronger than what people realize. And it's something I'm always saying to clients, what's your blood saying as well, because that's important for me to know too. Once you get that, that if you do have low iron or you're anemic or what have you, and once you start to treat that and get that under control, anxiety probably, I would say, will improve, potentially the panic attacks as well. But it may not be the be-all and end-all, don't get me wrong. There's certainly, like we talk about in psychology, the biopsychosocial model, and that looks at when we're explaining a behavior, anxiety or depression or whatever, that looks at the biological side of things. It looks at the social side of things, our support systems, who's around us, and so on. And it looks at our psychology, that's our attitudes towards life, our intentions, our goals, the way we speak to ourselves, and so on. So we're bringing that all together. And what I'm really talking about right now is the biology stuff. Once we treat that, let's look at the rest of the picture. Is the anxiety still happening? Okay, maybe it's my thoughts and the way that I think about myself, perhaps. Maybe I need to look at that. Maybe there's some trauma history, and that's why I think so negatively about myself, or I'm so worried about myself or the future, and so on. Maybe I don't have any support system, and maybe the circumstances and the environments that I'm in, maybe it's not great. Right? So all of these areas we need to work on usually when we're looking at mental health conditions, but this is something to consider. Let me know if you have treated low iron and it was related to you experiencing panic attacks or high anxiety. Let me know. Thanks for being here.